morning, everyone. Could I welcome you to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee? The time is 11:30, as you can hear from the clock outside. My name is Councillor Mike Reid. I'm chairperson for this subcommittee. Here are a few housekeeping rules, which we'll run through. First of all, can I ask everyone present at this virtual meeting to ensure that their microphones are turned off? Under normal circumstances, we'd also ask you to mute your audio, your visual as well. But in this case, we've only got one person on that. Please can you also advise the meeting there's been audio recorded and live streamed from the website, and then can be found next to the meeting details where the recording will remain thereafter. The MS Teams meeting will also now be recorded with a video upload to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Members and officers, where appropriate, for each of the items, please use the chat function, but I don't think that's going to be necessary as we've only got one person in there. Each member will be invited to speak in turn. Therefore, I would encourage all members to keep their contributions as clear and concise as possible. When speaking and referring to the agenda papers, could you please give the reference number of the page that you are indicating? Please can you now ask Democratic Services officers to undertake a roll call of the members of the subcommittee to confirm who is present this morning. Nancy.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. This was written when we weren't entirely sure who was going to be in the room, so it might be more appropriate if the members just introduce themselves as members of the committee.
Thank you, I agree. On my left is
Councillor Laney.
And on my right,
Councillor Cunningham.
And we'll now run through the officers.
Bryony Appletree, Licensing Officer.
Nathan Mountney, Litigation Solicitor.
Nancy Graham, Democratic Services Officer.
And we also have a representative from the police.
Good morning, Chair. PC Brian Swallow, Hampshire Police Licensing Officer, representing the Chief Officer of the Police. Thank
you very much. We'll now move to the setting out of the normal hearing licensing application. The licensing subcommittee procedure for hearing acts, objections to temporary event notices. Number 1A, the hearing regulations require that the hearing should take place in the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee that cross-examines and will not normally be allowed. Cross-examination will not normally be allowed. B, we will be following the adopted procedure of these hearings, which is to set out on the reverse of the agenda paper. Each party will be allowed equal maximum time to exercise their right to the hearing. I will exercise my discretion to allow additional time, if necessary, taking into account the requirement to allow all parties equal maximum time. Invite the applicant and the premises licence holder, if in attendance, or a representative to introduce themselves.
So that is to ask Mr. Dixon if he'd like to introduce himself by unmuting his microphone.
Yeah, hi, my name's Steve Dixon, promoter of the British Motocross Grand Prix.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon, and welcome. We've also heard from the police representative, PC Brian Swallow. I'll ask officers and representatives around the table to introduce themselves, which we've already done. I understand from the following persons that who wish to address the subcommittee on the prepared list is PC Brian Swallow. We can only consider issues relating to the 4 licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children. The subcommittee will also have regard to the national guidance and the council's licensing policy. The licensing manager / officer will introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. So on agenda item 1, which is reference LR574, this is a proposal to hold an event under a temporary event notice, or TEN for short, in accordance with section 100 of the Licensing Act 2003. The premises user is Mr. Steve Dixon. The premises concerned is the VIP hospitality marquee at a motocross event to be held at Matterley Basin, Winchester, between the 25th of June and 27th of June 2021. It is proposed that licensable activities under this temporary event notice will be restricted to the VIP hospitality marquee only. No plan was submitted with this temporary event notice to indicate the location of this premises. However, it is understood that this location is not covered by the 2 existing premises licenses in effect at Matterley Basin. Those are at Appendix 3 and 4 of your report pack. The sale by retail of alcohol for consumption on the premises only, being the only proposed licensable activity under this temporary event notice, is proposed to take place on Friday the 25th of June 2020 between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. On Saturday the 26th of June 2020 between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. and on Sunday the 27th of June between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. The temporary event notice in full can be seen in Appendix 1 to the report, which is pages 11 to 17 in your report bundle. Both Hampshire Constabulary and Environmental Health were consulted on the application, being relevant persons for temporary event notices. PC Brian Swallow made an objection to the temporary event notice on behalf of Hampshire Constabulary, referring to the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. The objection notice is detailed in Appendix 2 to this report, which is pages 19 to 21 of your report bundle. Whereas members are used to dealing with applications, this is a notice that an event is going to take place. Therefore, the subcommittee have the option to either permit the event to take place in accordance with the temporary event notice, and that's with or without conditions, or to recommend that the licensing authority issue a counter notice which would prevent the event from taking place. Full details of your decisions available to you are outlined on page 7 of your report bundle, and we also have legal advisor here to assist you. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Councillor Campbell, have you any questions? Councillor Laney?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the objector, Mr. Dixon. Would you like to present your representation, please?
Yep. So the TENs for the VIP camping area was applied for. So
Chair, apologies, Mr. Dixon. Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Dixon.
I believe it should be PC Swallow at this stage, the objector.
Apologies. My apologies. I jumped. Sorry, Mr. Dixon. We'll come back to you in a second. The objector, thank you. Sorry, PC Swallow.
That's absolutely fine. Before I commence my report, I'd like permission to include further evidence for this hearing. I seek your permission because the hearing regulations Act state that I have to get consent from all parties to do such. The document is from David Ingram, who's the chair of the Winchester Safety Advisory Group and Service League Public Protection Service, and it basically details concerns about public safety regarding the event. This letter has been served to Mr. Dixon and he received a copy of it this morning, and I'd like to consent to include it in the report, please.
Yes, please.
Have you got copies now?
Sorry, so just to clarify, Chair, all parties need to consent to that, so that would be all members of the subcommittee, PC Swallow, who was obviously presenting the evidence, and Mr Dixon would have to agree to this being discussed in the hearing.
Thank you, Mr Dixon.
Yes. Yes.
Would you agree to this additional information being transferred to members?
I don't really mind. It's fine. I mean, I have a lot to say about it, but it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
One question I would like to ask is.
Could you just hold on?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree, thank you. So do I.
Sorry. Yes, continue, Mr.
Yeah, this is obviously an event that we've held every year since 2006, and we've the occurrence that Brian is talking about, Mr. Swales, was from last year in March. There was supposedly something that went wrong, and I just wondered, and also people with me wondered, why, if there was something that was so wrong, it was not acted upon in March last year and not waited until May, June before our event to sort of bring all the, if there was concerns. It doesn't matter. I mean, obviously we'll address everything, but I just find it, strange to sort of, bring this up at, 15 months later, when we would normally have a debrief after the event. And it's clearly possible that we could have done that by Zoom. And now we are doing a Zoom.
So Nathan Mounty, litigation solicitor. We're in a position where the police are just looking to present essentially their concerns in relation to the event at the moment and the nature of their objection.
Yeah.
You'll get an opportunity in due course to speak. So thank you for saying what you said. I'm sure that's something that we'll come back to.
Yeah.
Let's get those representations from the police clearly presented first and foremost, and then we'll come back to what you've got to say later in terms of what's relevant to the application.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Dixon. I'm sure that the police representative will cover the item that you just mentioned about in this report. Thank you.
Yes, I will. Hopefully Brian is just going to give you a copy of that as well.
We continue.
Yeah.
We're going to just adjourn for a few moments, about 10 minutes, in order to read the letter in its entirety, and then we will come back to PC Swallow. Thank you. Right, thank you. Welcome back. Is Mr. Dixon with us?
Mr. Dixon, I can see you're in the Teams meeting. Would you mind just confirming that you're present?
Mike's just gone. So the audio stream is still muted. Have you muted him?
No.
It's not on mute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Welcome back. It was a long letter, and I must admit I'm not the quickest of readers at the best of times. So we'll now continue with the objector. Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I also appreciate the allowing of that letter, as I think it's quite pertinent to this matter. Following on from submitting my application objecting to this notice, I received no communications from the applicant addressing any of the issues I have raised. This 10 is for a VIP hospitality marquee bar at the Motocross Grand Prix. It is mentioned within their management plan and depicted on the plans for the event. This 10 is notifying for on-sales of alcohol and for 499 persons. Under the Health Protection Regulations legislation, all alcohol provided for an on-sale must be ordered by and served to persons who are seated. There is nothing in any of the documentation supplied by Mr. Dixon detailing how this is to be facilitated. It is in my opinion that he's completely unaware of the legislation, and as such, if permitted, this 10 criminal offences would be committed. The continuing saga in relation to security at the event is still ongoing. We have now been advised that there will be a secondary security company operating at the event, and this is the fourth change. To compound my serious concerns, the security policy document, which is listed as pages 30 and 31 in my additional bundle, is a mere 2 pages long and offers no detail whatsoever. It states that Security Nation will coordinate and deliver the overall security plan. Unfortunately, nobody is aware of such a plan, and in fact the Managing Director of Security Nation is not retaining anybody's communications. Within version 2 of the bar management plan, which is pages 23 and 25 of my additional bundle, heading security policy around bar areas, it reads, please refer to Appendix 6.2 security schedule. 6.2 is actually the road sign layout. 7.2 is the security schedule. But as of 2 PM yesterday, it is blank, and I've submitted this for your consideration, and that is page 32 of my additional bundle. This event is an annual event, with it previously being held in February 2020. The event was far from incident-free. There were breaches of the premises licence with a lack of security, insecure bars, unchallenged intoxication, and a lack of overall communication between the event organiser and the security company. However, the most concerning situation was a large structure collapse that fortunately no one was killed. This was the item that Mr. Dixon has just referred to as supposedly something went wrong. This is a considerably large scaffolding tower of certain weight and size. At a recent Safety Advisory Group meeting, all the issues of last year's event were put to Mr. Dixon. He's completely dismissed that he's responsible for any of the failings, and this is now addressed in the letter that we've additionally included, written by Mr. Dave Ingram, and the concerns that he has over those points. The event is now a mere 8 days away. None of the points I raised in my objection have been addressed, and as such, I still request that a counter notice is issued. I have no confidence Mr. Dixon could promote the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime disorder, public safety, and the protection of harm. Thank you.
Clarify any points to the local authority?
So this would be your point, Chair, where you may wish to clarify any points that PC Brian Swallow has raised.
Yeah, I'm just going to move on to that next. Councillor Cunningham.
PC Swallow. Just quickly, if you could advise me, the original application was for an on-licensed premises consumption, right? Consumption of alcohol on the premises.
The 10 that we're addressing today is yes.
And so what are the applications in relation to consumption of alcohol off sales, off the premises?
The site itself is quite complicated in the way that it's set out. The actual site of the event benefits from 2 premises licenses, and they're in existence, and I won't be discussing. I will be referring to them, but I won't be discussing them at this hearing. They relate to the supply of alcohol on and off the premises. So in effect, so the bars that are located on the site, alcohol can be purchased and then taken away from those bars. This temporary event notice is requesting the supply of alcohol on the premises. So that would be in either a demarcated area holding 499 people, and that has to be managed. But that alcohol, under the health and safety regulations for on sales, which it specifically refers to, has to be sold by way of table service.
Can you advise me of this, if you're aware of the space or the size of the application site here, and how many people would be physically capable of fitting into that space?
Well, unfortunately, and that is one of my concerns, there is no reference to the size of this. I'm going to assume that it is a marquee that it's got. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact sizing of it. I would suggest that it would be quite difficult to get 499 persons in there. But other than that, I have no other details, because there are no other details submitted within this application, or actually within the event management plan itself of that location.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rainey.
Yeah, so what you're really saying to us is the fact that you're suffering from an extreme lack of information that you require to ensure safety on this point. Because normally we were receiving plans for this sometime in advance.
Yeah, this is true, although it is fair to say that the pandemic has thrown a lot of issues in the way, and with the changing times and the way that such a short space of time has been permitted for applicants to get these things in order. However, we have managed to have relevant meetings with all parties involved. Concerns were raised at the earliest opportunities in relation to safety and security aspects, and these have still not been addressed.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Another one, I'm afraid, for you, sir. We've heard of the details of the problems that occurred in February 2020, the last event that was held by MX. In what way do you believe that this year's EMP is different to that last year, and how many security staff are on the ground per se this year in order to avoid such issues and problems?
That is a very pertinent question. For the latter part, in relation to the numbers of security, I cannot tell you, because that is the page, the security schedule, pages 32, where I would have expected to see such detail, and it's blank. So I can't offer any advice as to how many security will be there, which is a serious concern for me.
And what is the change in the content of the EMP? How does that differ from last year in order to avoid a repetition of the problems that has occurred last year in your report?
So the initial event management plan was submitted a few weeks ago. There were a few minor changes to the plan for the 2020 event to incorporate some very scant details in relation to COVID. Probably the main pertinent point for me is we're talking about the public safety and the large structure collapse that we had. There was no mention of that collapse, or in fact, the most pertinent point as to how that would be prevented this year was not in this year's plan.
With regard to the collapsed structure, would that have been a recordable incident?
Very much so.
Thank you, members. No more questions from us. I would now ask the applicant, have you any questions you would like to ask the objector? Mr. Dixon. You appear to be muted, no sounds coming.
Yeah, so, is that okay? Is that okay?
That's okay.
I'm hearing an echo.
You can both see you and hear you.
Yep, okay. So, I mean, obviously there seems to be a lot of reference to this structure, which was in a double fenced off area, not to the public. This structure is erected every year since 2011, and it's erected at every World Championship around. So every year there's 20 Grand Prix, and it's erected at every Grand Prix. Last year we had a horrific storm, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, this structure, with no one on it or anything, and as I say, public, no one is allowed on it anyway. It has wind monitoring. I am not responsible for putting that up. It is checked by the health and safety, and the wind took the structure and it collapsed. So there was, our team, our health and safety reported a RIDDOR. We have never received anything back. We would have expected, after reporting a RIDDOR in March the 1st, 2020, we'd have expected some sort of inquiry between then and now about this, and where everything was fresh in people's minds and everything would have been, dealt with then, any concerns, etc. That structure.
Can I just interject? This is the point where you can question the objector.
Yeah, so it was really what relevance has that to do with our TENS application, the same application that has been in since 2010, since 2011, our TENS application for the VIP area has been the same. The layout has been the same, nothing has changed in this area since 2011. Maybe because of people have changed that in the council area or the licensing or whatever, but our applications for our TENS, which are separate from our licensed area, have always remained exactly the same. And the only reason is that the site is so large that it's just stopped people having to walk so far. And we've never had any. I would like to question how many arrests or misdemeanors have happened in the since 2011. How many reports or arrests have been made and recorded with Winchester? I would like that history, because I believe it's zero.
Please, I think you've got two questions there.
I don't know about the first one. The second one, I'm not aware of any arrests that have been made at the event. What was the first question?
Well, also, what if there are any bar people or security or underage people that have been cautioned and taken to the police and reported and put on record, because obviously if things were that bad, then this type of thing would have obviously been reported. There'd be a nice history of everything.
No persons have been reported.
Thank you.
And can you confirm that the event has run since 2006?
I'm not actually aware of the dates that it's been running, unfortunately.
Yes. since 2006. We've seen a lot of changes in staff in the council. You know, this year, and I did raise that to the SAG, the traffic has changed, not licensing, sorry, because that was the same. But many areas have changed, and it's a rotation. The licensing officer, Graham Wren, who used to be there, maybe we were too personal with him because he had done so many of the events. And yeah, so maybe we're all guilty of a little complacency of actually thinking we know what each other's doing. But our event
are in the question to the objector at this point.
Yeah, I'm just asking, obviously we brought some history up. I would like to just question to see if there's any history of us doing something wrong and being reported and actually being prosecuted for doing something actually wrong, you know, in a large scale event, a sporting event, a world championship motocross sporting event that is live on television.
Okay, PC Swallow.
I think I can answer that because I think some of the points have actually been addressed by Dave Ingram in his letter talking about previous events where they've had to serve warning letters to Mr. Dixon, which was in issues in 2012, 2013. It goes on to mention that there have certainly been issues, and these are similar issues that have occurred again this year.
Okay, Mr. Nixon, if there's no more questions.
I would like to, 2012 and 2013 was not the same event. That was a 4-day festival where actually amateurs were invited to participate along the same track as the World Championship peers. So it was over Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So there were 700 riders, and you know, it was a festival organised by the government arm of motorcycle in the ACU, and it went successfully. Obviously there was a lot more people than this current event, which has been the same since 2013, 14, sorry. But yeah, obviously I had warnings for that, and you know, I'm ultimately responsible, so I have to take everything upon myself. But after those warnings, you know, like I said, I wonder if there was any arrests or any documentation afterwards or prosecutions that arose, because obviously I know that the council, the police, everyone has to ensure that they've, you know, educated me and told me that I am responsible and that I am responsible for public safety, death and everything. So I fully understand that.
I think it's the same answer before, that no one has been arrested. I'm not aware that anybody has been arrested, cautioned for offences at that event.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, PC Swallow. Was there any police presence at the event, in fact, over the 3 days last year?
I'm not aware that there was. Not uniform police patrol presence. There was a police licensing present. It wasn't me, it was one of my colleagues, 2 of my colleagues who went and attended the event, and they were the ones that gained the evidence of the points that I mentioned in relation to the intoxication, issues with security, etc., and that's where that evidence came from.
Right, okay, and the same report you referred to the breaches of the premises licenses with the lack of security, insecure bars, unchallenged intoxication, lack of communication. Is that, could I ask one of the officers whether that came from our own presence in the event itself, or was it in relation to the 2 officers that you?
It was in relation to my 2 colleagues who went.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, are there any further questions on the objector? If not, could you therefore move to address the committee yourself.
Yes. So I'm getting that feedback. That's okay now. So the site is very large. It's over. It can actually hold 200,000 people. The licensed area that we spoke about for the 10s, the VIP area, which has been the same for ever since 2006. It's a Harris fenced off area, and it allows sponsors to sit on a tiered grass area and be bought drinks to, and yeah, they're the guests that are sponsors that, you know, help pay for the event, and sponsors of you know, that advertise. So, and this has remained the same since 2011. The area can hold, it's 100 meters by 100 meters. So if you took 4 people, it can hold 2,500 people, no problem. Our total capacity of the venue is 200,000 people. We are operating at 2% with 4,000 crowd here. We have a licensed area, and especially now due to COVID, this would encourage people not to, if there was no tents in place, it would mean that the VIPs then have to, because you have to have a, so let me start, we have a PCR COVID event backstage. So all competitors, VIPs, have to undertake, we have an on-site COVID test center there. They'll be tested before they go in, and if you're from the UK, then you'll get lateral flow test. So all of the competitors and everything are registered with the government from abroad. They all have to provide a day 2 and a PCR test and test it on site. So all those go to the government. So if we then, so these bars actually help social distancing. It was never that idea in the first place, but if then people have to then go out and mix with the public and go over to the premise license area, then it's a whole, yeah, there's no point in having COVID safe areas. We've had the steel shield put into the event so that we have clear demarcation of areas for COVID. So we can, and we never normally have a VIP camping bar. We only put that in because normally we have to have an area where they can walk 400 meters to the public premise license, which is already, you know, a permanent thing in perpetuity. And we've never had any breaches on that either reported. So it was really just to avoid having to get people to go from, you know, there's 300 camping vehicles, and those people all have nice campers. They would walk down to the, they would normally walk down to the licensed area and have a drink and then walk back again. And this whole COVID, you know, event safety, you know, plays into our hand because the area is so big. So we, you know, all we've done is put a steel shield, you know, gated areas so that we can actually mark our areas into 5 different zones that are very secure. So for us, if we were refused any of the 10s, it wouldn't actually harm our event. It wouldn't actually make any difference to us. It would just concentrate everything into one area, which already has a granted premise license for 5,000 people. So that's, so, you know, the outcome of this doesn't, you know, it doesn't have any, it only makes it awkward for people, and that means that they have to walk a bit further. Bar 2 and 3 are 400 meters away from the premise license. So during the day, we have a premise license open where they have off sales. Bar 2 and 3, we don't always operate bar 2 and 3. It depends on the crowd, and maybe they won't even have a bar 2 and 3 because they're only put there for the convenience of people to not have to keep walking back to the premise license bar. And that's, you know, I can show you lots of videos and pictures of the event. It's a very nice family orientated event. And, you know, I feel, you know, these objections are sort of misguided, you know, because the history of our event is a very nice event and it creates good publicity for Winchester, and it's a very well liked part of the World Championship and is a prestigious event. But you know, you're dealing with public, so we used to run a public bus down to Winchester, a free of charge bus that went down to Winchester. But as we're trying to comply with COVID safety, we cancelled that bus. XL Bus used to provide, we contracted them, and we would have a bus that went down in the evening and came back in the evening so that they could go to Winchester. We also had that for the hotel people so they could travel to the event from the hotels in Winchester. And, you know, because it's good for local economy. I'm born and bred in Winchester, all my family in Winchester, and I care very much about Winchester, more so than it, you know, most people. So it is, you know, I run a World Championship team myself. I've had that team 32 years, and I've run a Grand Prix since 2006. So, you know, I do find some of this frustrating, you know, aimed at me as if I'm incompetent, but I'm also an engineer as well. So I do care for everything, and licensing and safety. And my sister's high up in the ambulance, and she always says to me, you have to be sure that you're happy to stand up in a coroner's report and say that you've done everything possible. And I try to do that. And when we...
Mr. Dixon,
yeah.
Litigation Solicitor, do you have anything that you wish to state to the councillors in relation to the licensing objectives?
Yeah, I would just like to say, like,
specifically in relation to the marquee, because that's the nature of this particular matter we're discussing now.
So as of yet, we don't, you know, we're not even having a marquee because we had to wait until COVID, tell the response of what was going on with COVID on, because had the Prime Minister changed on the other day, then, you know, none of this would have been questioned because it would have gone back to normal. So
Mr. Dixon,
at the moment we would operate a table service as would be expected from a VIP.
We're considering the VIP hospitality marquee that you've applied for made a tender application for. Are you having that marquee, yes or no?
No.
Then why are we considering the application for it then?
Because we're having a drive-in bus, an American style bus that would basically operate in the VIP camping area at night time, you know, and it's one of these quirky buses.
That's not the subject of your application, though, is it, Mr. Dixon?
No, so there would be a bar area, which would be the bus, and the hostesses would take orders and take drinks to the tables, at the picnic tables.
Mr. Dixon, are you formally withdrawing your application for the Thames application for the VIP hospitality marquee? If you're not having the marquee, then the application is defunct, isn't it?
Well, if we have a marquee, if in case it rains, there'll be no sides on it, so it is still technically a marquee, yes.
But you just said you're not having it, so pretty much your situation at the moment is you don't know whether or not you intend to erect a marquee and serve alcohol from it, is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Because of the COVID rules, everything is a little bit ad hoc at the moment.
Well,
Can I just stop the meeting for a second? If the marquee is not being used, but subsequently another way of serving, would I be right in thinking that it requires a further application with the new events?
If the situation at present is that the applicant is unsure as to whether or not the VIP hospitality marquee is going to be erected, then you can still consider the matter, but of course all the necessary considerations in relation to the licensing objectives and promotion of those would need to be in place, of course.
And if it was served from another vehicle, does that not require?
Brian?
So at present, the temporary event notice that has been submitted, where it states, please describe the nature of the premises, it simply says marquee. So if Mr Dixon were to change the nature of the premises, it would require a further temporary event notice, as this one does specifically relate to a marquee, as he has stated on the temporary event notice.
So we,
the question that our legal person put, is the marquee or is no marquee?
I say, so we could supply a marquee so that the alcohol was served from a marquee and distributed. That's fine. We can do that.
So
Because technically beforehand, the marquee, as normally you're seated in tables of 10, and you're there'd be like 400 people in a big marquee. That is no way viable now with the area, with the COVID rules and regulations. That's not possible. So we've had to change everything to move it outside and have picnic tables. And if it's needed to be in a marquee to comply and not have to reapply, we can have a marquee over the bus.
So I believe the position is at the moment is that you're still considering the application for the VIP marquee as applied for.
Yes.
Okay, Mr Nixon.
I mean, the bar, normally, as I say, we had a bar in a marquee, and it was waitress service, and it brought it out. The reason we were thinking about the American bus bar is because obviously with reduced numbers now, the bus could have done both jobs, because it would only operate in the evening. But we only have a small bar of 6 foot. It's not a nightclub, so it's very easy to erect a bar. As always, it's a 6 foot bar with 2 people and waitresses to bring out drink. It's it's not a big issue to us. It's a complimentary thing, like if you go and watch cricket or rugby and you went to a members enclosure. It's nothing more than that.
Mr Dixon, forgive me, do you have anything relevant to say in relation to the licensing objectives in relation to the VIP marquee? Is there anything specific that you have that you wish to say?
Only we will comply with the licensing laws. If it's in a marquee, we'll have a marquee there, open-sided, with a bar in it. We will not have a bus there now.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Bryony.
Could we therefore move on to the objector? Do you have any questions for the applicant, please?
Yes, I will have a couple. Morning, Mr Dixon. You stated in your report there that you were not responsible for putting up the collapsed structure. Who is responsible?
In front, they are the. If you're familiar with Formula One and used to be Bernie Ecclestone and F1, in front are the promoters of the World Championship Series. They own the structures, and they put the structures up at every round in the World Championship. For instance, that same structure was up last week when we raced in Russia. So they put the structure up. They give us the inspection report, and we check it over. So wind was monitored, etc. And so that's the first time I've seen that happen with that structure. It's the same structure up at every round across all of the world, even in America, even in Brazil, Argentina, everywhere. That same structure is shipped, inspected. It's a layer system. You know, if you're familiar with the types that are used at Boomtown, and it's a single story where people stand above the riders, and it's where the podium is, and it's erected out of a layer system, and it has a banner system which advertises, let's say, Monster Energy or whatever. And
forgive me, it's a very simple question. Who was responsible for erecting the structure? I think you've answered that question. Is that correct?
Yeah, in front. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've heard the term in front used in some of the safety advisory group meetings. I think it's been raised by the chairperson of the safety advisory group meeting that there was actually nothing written in the event management plan surrounding who is in front and who is external, etc. So with regards to the actual overall event, I would assume therefore that as the event promoter, event organiser, that you have sole responsibility for the event as a whole. Is that correct?
Are you addressing that to me or the chair?
No, that's you.
To me?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously I am overall responsible for the event. Absolutely. But I
also include every structure, whether it be that structure, every bar tent, and every member of persons within the event itself.
Absolutely. But
that's the only question. That was it. Was a yes no question.
Can I ask the chair a question then?
Sorry, go on. I'll give you a little bit.
Whilst I'm overall responsible, I think it would be mad to think that one person is a specialist in every area and can sign off and do all of these things. I am there and I'm actually removed as the person. I put people in charge of signing off, and all the people that, you know, the health and safety that sign off are competent and correct people. And that structure from 2011, I would like to ask again the council or Mr. Swales, why in 2021 has this been brought up when that same structure, that same has never been inspected?
It's not your turn to answer questions. This is me asking questions of yourself, if that's okay. Thank you. We spoke about the events in 2012, 2013 that Dave Ingram has referred to in his letter, and you've given a description of those events. Who was in charge of those events in those years?
If you say in charge,
who was the event person? Who was the event controller? Who had overall responsibility of those events?
David Samuels.
And who is he in relation to the event?
He was an event controller, health and safety officer that we employed because he did large events.
So you employed him?
Yes.
So you would still have overall control?
Exactly, yes.
Lovely, thank you very much. In relation to the actual temporary event notice itself that we're talking about, you've requested on sales. You touched a little bit on it, but how are you going to facilitate on sales in the marquee?
A waitress would come up and take an order from the picnic benches, go up to the bar and bring the drinks back.
And if you're looking at 499 persons in that bar, how many staff will you have on duty for that?
We would have 10.
Okay, and in relation to security, that obviously played quite a big part. There's still no details in relation to your security policy and security schedule. So how is that security going to be protecting that bar?
You have one security on the bar, and then you have one on the steel shield entrance and one on the bottom patrolling fencing.
So as of yesterday, your security schedule is blank. Why is that not mentioned?
Yeah, I don't know on the blank, because obviously the documents, lots of documents are being uploaded at the moment, and yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I know it's up there now. So yeah, it's the same as every year, and we will, yeah, we'll make sure it's there. And as I say, we always have the security there, and we've never had a problem. I'm sorry for a bit of paperwork misunderstanding. The reason Marcel, who is our security manager and owner, he found his dad dead on Monday and hasn't been contactable. So he just rang me earlier before this meeting and said, sorry, I've been out of contact, but that's just what's happened. I mean, and his firm do Wimbledon, Leeds Downloads Festivals, Boomtown, all sorts, and they're based in Holdenbury. If I go back to security,
Marcel, I work with him quite a lot. As I said, I've tried to get hold of him. I do know that his dad sadly passed away, so I spoke to his wife the other day. But I don't think I've got any more questions, actually.
Thank you. Members.
I would just like to say, with various security firms and with any sort of contractor in the event industry, you can have a good company 1 year, and then the following year, the people out on the ground are not the same people. They've moved on, and we see this all the time with litter pickers, with fence crew, with all sorts of areas. So it is a volatile area, the security industry.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. We'll now come to members who wish to ask any questions. Councillor Lamy? No further questions. Councillor Cunningham?
Mr. Dixon, very briefly, question. You referred earlier on to the distance between the main licensed premises bar, the entertainment area, and the VIP marquee, being about 400 metres.
Yeah.
What is the distance between, sorry, I beg your pardon, that's the distance between the marquee and bars 2 and 3, this is what you said. What is the distance between the VIP marquee and the licensed premises? Because as far as I can see, you've got one DPS, Robert Simmons, who's going to be based at bar 1, is that correct?
Yeah.
So what's the distance therefore for him to cover?
Well, he would be able to go in a buggy if he needed to come over, but it's about 450 metres.
So that's not far short of half a kilometre.
Yes, exactly.
And this is at the same time that the two bars are proposed to be open at the same time, with the VIP bar opening from 9 AM to 11 PM on Friday and Saturday, and the main entertainment bar open until 1 AM. So basically at the main demand periods, you'll have one DPS covering 2 bars plus the other 2 bars 2 and 3 with 1 DPS. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, technically that's correct. If we go to the VIP bar, we've never opened it on a Friday. We only open it between 9 and 5 PM, which is the racing times. But as I've been advised, it's better to have more on the application, and so that you're covered for any eventualities. We've never opened on a Friday, and we've never opened in the evening in the VIP area. it's always been 5 o'clock. But if suddenly someone wanted to do a presentation and show a product or something like that, then we would be covered. And you know, in my business, it's better to be covered than not covered. There's no evidence to show that we've ever gone over those times either.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Riley, did you want to interject?
Yes, I just wanted to raise a point of clarity for Councillor Cunningham's interest. The designated premises supervisor would apply to those bars under the premises licences. However, the premises user / person responsible for any bars covered under a temporary event notice is Mr. Steve Dixon, not the designated premises supervisor named on the premises licence. So you may wish to ask Mr. Dixon how he will manage the bars under these temporary event notices, or sorry, this temporary event notice that we are discussing in agenda item 1.
Did you gather that, Mr. Dixon? Mr. Dixon?
Sorry, yeah.
Did you hear what Brian E. Appletree is?
Yeah, saying about I'm responsible for the TENS and that the DPS is responsible for the premises area.
Correct.
Yes.
How do you intend to manage the bar, the tent, whilst it's open in the hours that it is open, which is basically Friday up until 1 a.m., Saturday up until 1 a.m., and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you've got 11 hours on Friday night, 15 hours on Saturday night, and 7 hours on Monday night. Sorry, beg your pardon. You've got 4 hours on Friday night from 7 to 11. You've got 14 hours on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And you've got 10 hours from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And how do you propose to cover those hours as the responsible person?
Well, for one, I would limit those to not Friday night, and then from 10 till 5 on Saturday and 10 till Friday, 5 on Sunday. And I would have 2 competent bar managers in there and the three security I mentioned earlier, and the same processes as every year since 2011. I trust in our history, not to have to change it. It's the same client, people that come since 2011. So we have no reason to change anything than before. I just copied and pasted the application every year, and nothing has changed. It's all, I have all the pictures and the history of everything from 2011 and 6.
So your proposal, therefore, is to employ 2 bar supervisors to discharge your duty in terms of the responsibility to operate the bars within the licensing laws and to promote.
Exactly, yes. I wouldn't know how to pour a pint or to run a bar. No, I wouldn't.
Ronnie,
I know I have to apply for the 10, so that's what I've always done, like I say. And then I've always contracted the same type of people, bar people. They're all the bars are owned by the one company, Event Bar, who are a big bar company that do like the game fair and all the big areas, and they have a contract to do our event, and they manage it and put the bar in and everything.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to raise what was initially going to be 1 point of clarity, but is now 3, I'm afraid. To clarify, a TENS premises user can delegate their responsibility to another person lawfully, so it would not be improper for Mr. Dixon to do so, but that would have to be in writing. Mr. Dixon, you just mentioned that you were looking to amend the hours of your temporary event notice in order to promote the licensing objectives so that that can be considered by the subcommittee in their decision. Please can I ask you to clarify what those hours would be?
Yeah, as I put the 10 in before the restrictions were not lifted on, you know, stage 4 of the road part. We're still in stage 3. I would be happy to have the hours as 10 on Saturday till 5, and the same again on Sunday.
And would you be looking to still undertake licensable activities on the Friday?
No.
Okay.
No.
And then just final point of clarity, sorry, is that the temporary event notices historically for this event have not been always submitted by Mr. Steve Dixon. They have historically been submitted by a third-party bar contractor, that is somebody who runs a bar for a living, if you like. We have multiple applications in the past from third-party contractors rather than Mr. Dixon himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Barney. Could we now move on to the objector, please? Have you any orders in order to clarify any of the points?
In regards to, do you wish to just sum up my points? Would that be in order?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think my concerns are certainly still not addressed in relation to this matter. In fact, I probably have more now than when I came into the room with the underlying opinion saying that Mr. Dixon, who is the applicant, who, although, as Barney correctly said, can discharge the responsibilities, Mr. Dixon has just said that he wouldn't know how to run a bar. This bar is still within the confines of the Motocross Grand Prix, to which he is responsible. I still continue the fact that I have no confidence in his ability to run and manage this bar, and that he won't be able to uphold the licensing objectives of prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and protection for children from harm.
Thank you very much. We now come to the point where the committee will retire. This would be the normal course of action. However, on this occasion, the objector and Barney are going to retire, so the subcommittee can view the information received and give a recommendation on the application itself. Mr. Dixon, would you keep yourself available? So we'll call you as and when we're ready to restart.
Yeah, just to clarify, Mr. Dixon, what will happen is the camera and the microphone on that you're viewing will be muted, but the meeting will still be going on. So if you just want to remain in the meeting, as soon we'll check you're there when we all come back in for the subcommittee to give their decision.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'll go that way. Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Mr. Dixon, you're there. I can see all parties are in place. In reaching the decision of the subcommittee, it's considered the objection and the response of the applicant. It has taken into account the council's statement of the licensing policy, the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the duties under the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998, and the rights set out in the Human Rights Act of 1998. The subcommittee has concluded that a counter notice should be given in respect to the temporary event license, to temporary event notice. This means that the activities set out in the temporary event notice may not go ahead for the following reasons. Generally, it is accepted that the recovering from the coronavirus pandemic has been difficult to all concerned. We hope the applicant, sportspersons involved and the organisers as well, as they have begin to run their events openly, to begin running their events again. However, we are in a position to decide on whether the VIP hospitality marquee should be allowed to continue based upon the promotion of the licensing objectives. The subcommittee have no confidence in the applicant to organise the event in a professional manner and promote the licensing objectives. It has become clear at the hearing that the applicant does not know what he is asking for. The hearing has proceeded on the basis that the marquee is still a consideration. The applicant has admitted that he doesn't know how to run a bar, which is of grave concern given that the licensability activities being applied for. The applicant is unable to articulate or explain the democracy of the responsibilities in running a bar and controlling the sale of alcohol. Yes. Public safety. We take seriously the concerns of the police, which haven't been addressed in the plan submitted. Security measures are unclear. We don't know how 499 persons, including minors, are to be controlled. We don't know if there is going to be any fencing around the marquee to ensure this. There is a distinct absence of a clear management plan and a clear evidence that from Mr. David Ingram of the licensing authority that either measures have not been taken or are insufficient to address the safety concerns. Security schedule and security points map are still unavailable as of today, as Mr. Ingram's letter dated the 17th of June has indicated. No number of security personnel has been provided. The protection of children from harm, these are insufficient control measures regarding the proposed 499 persons in and out of the premises. There is concern regarding the proximity sales, which is not addressed. The DPS is based on the entertainment area half a kilometre away from the proposed marquee. There is concern in the relation to the management of the refusals, which hasn't been addressed. Crime and disorder. The absence of any ability to control 499 at the marquee bar in the wider site of 4,000 capacity raises unaddressed concerns as to the free movement of persons buying alcohol and the high likelihood of consumption by children and underage adolescents. Observations by non-uniformed police officers showed breaches of the licensing by lack of security at the bars, unchallenged intoxication and lack of communication with security. The subcommittee, the parties will have a formal notification of the decision in writing shortly. This notification may include details of the right to appeal against this decision to the Magistrates' Court, which must be made within 21 days of the notification. I would like to thank all parties for their attendance, and we will move on to the second item straight away, if the members are happy. Thank you very much.
Ask this a regular question.
Are we adjourning the meeting?
No, it's just yeah, thank you. Apologies.
I'd like to take item 2, which is LR 545, for a temporary event notice for a VIP camping area. The hearing requires, the hearing should take place in the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee. That cross-examination will not normally be allowed. We will be following the adopted procedures of the hearings, which is set out on the reverse of the playbook. Each party will be allowed equal maximum time to exercise their rights at the hearing. I will exercise my discretion to allow additional time if necessary, and taking into account the requirement to allow for all parties equal maximum time. I would therefore invite the applicant, Mr. Steve Dixon, are you online?
Yeah.
Thank you. I would also welcome the objector in the form of PC Swallow. So I'm just doing where I am now. To ask the officers and representatives around the table to introduce themselves. Okay, we'll go through that again. Sorry, that's what I was putting me off actually. To my left.
Councillor Laming.
And to my right.
Councillor Cunningham.
And myself as chairman, Michael Reid, and the officers present.
Bryony Appletree, licensing officer.
Nathan Mountley, litigation solicitor.
Nancy Graham, Democratic Services Officer.
And PC Brian Swallow, Police Licensing Officer representing the Chief Officer of Police.
Thank you. We can only consider issues related to the 4 licensing objectives: prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children. The subcommittee will also have regard to the national guidance and the council's licensing policies. I would now like to invite the licensing officer to present the case, please.
Thank you, Chair.
This is a proposal to hold a temporary, an event under a temporary event notice, or 10 for short, in accordance with section 100 of the Licensing Act 2003. The premises user is Mr. Steve Dixon. The premises concerned is the VIP camping area at AMH Cross Events to be held at Mackley Basin, Winchester, between the 25th of June and 27th of June 2021. It is proposed that licensable activities under this temporary event notice will be restricted to the VIP camping area only. No plan was submitted with the temporary event notice to indicate the location of this premises. However, it is understood that this location is not covered by the 2 existing premises licenses in effect at Mackley Basin for this event. Those are shown at appendices 3 and 4 to this report. The sale by retail of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, being the only proposed licensable activity, is proposed to take place on Friday the 25th of June 2020 between 12 p.m. and 11 p.m, on Saturday the 26th of June 2020 between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m, and Sunday the 27th of June 2020 between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. The temporary event notice in full can be seen in Appendix 1 to the report, which is pages 55 to 62 of your bundle. Both Hampshire Constabulary and Environmental Health were consulted on the application, being relevant persons for temporary event notices. PC Brian Swallow made an objection to the temporary event notice on behalf of Hampshire Constabulary, referring to the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. The objection notice is detailed in Appendix 2 to the report, which is pages 63 to 65 of your bundle. Whereas members are used to dealing with applications, this is a notice that an event will be going ahead. Therefore, the subcommittee have the option to either permit the event to take place in accordance with the temporary event notice, with or without conditions, or to recommend that the licensing authority issue a counter notice to prevent the event from taking place. Full details of the decisions available to you are outlined on page 51 of your report bundle, and a legal advisor is present to assist you. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Bonnie. Members? Councillor Cameron?
No question at this time.
Councillor Lee? Thank you. I now call upon the objector, PC Swallow, for your input, please.
Thank you, Chair. A little bit procedural beforehand. Can I request that additional evidence is included in my report? And the additional evidence is a letter from David Ingram, Chair of Winchester Safety Group, Service League Public Protection Services, where he voices his concerns over public safety. Under the Hearing Regulations Act, I have to seek consent from all parties for this document to be included within the hearing, and I'd like that, please.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon? Do you consent or otherwise?
Yeah.
Thank you. Members?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. We'll take that as a read document. Can you proceed, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Following on from submitting my application objecting to this notice, I've received no communications from the applicant addressing any of the issues I've raised. There is no mention of this tent within the supply bar management plans, which are listed under pages 20 and 22 of my additional documents, or the camping plans, which are identified in pages 26 and 29 of my additional bundle. Amazingly, version 2 of the plan was submitted after my objection, highlighting this point, and is still not mentioned within the document. And for clarity, Mr. Dixon is the author of both and all of these documents. The 10 is notifying for the supply of alcohol both on and off the premises for 499 persons. There is no mentions in this temporary event notice as to how those numbers are to be controlled. There is also no mention of how on-sales are going to be operated in adherence with the current health protection regulations, which states that all supply of alcohol on the premises must be made by table service. The continuing saga in relation to security at the event is still ongoing. We have now been advised there will be a second security company operating the event. To compound my serious concerns, the security policy document is a mere 2 pages long and offers no detail whatsoever. It states that Security Nation will coordinate and deliver the overall security plan. Unfortunately, nobody is aware of such a plan, and in fact, the Managing Director of Security Nation is not returning anybody's communications. With version 2 of the bar management plan, pages 23 to 25 of my additional bundle, heading security policy around bar areas, it reads, please refer to Appendix 6.2 security schedule. 6.2 is actually the road sign layout, 7.2 is the security schedule, but as of 2 PM yesterday, it is blank, and I've submitted it for your consideration, which is page 32 of my additional bundle. The event is an annual event, with it previously being held in February 2020. The event was far from incident-free. There were breaches of the premises licences with lack of security, insecure bars, unchallenged intoxication and a lack of communication overall between the event organiser and the security company. However, the most concerning situation was a large collapse, a large structure collapse, where fortunately no one was killed. At a recent safety advisory group meeting, all of the issues at last year's event were put to Mr. Dixon. He completely dismissed that he was responsible for any of the failures. These concerns are still ongoing, and they are addressed in the letter that I've additionally supplied by Mr. David Ingram. The event is 8 days away. None of these points I raised in my objection have been addressed, and as such, I still request that the council notice is issued. I have no confidence in Mr. Dixon that he can promote the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime disorder, public safety and protection of children from harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridie, is there anything you wish to clarify?
If I may actually just clarify, I'm conscious that members have a separate document to the additional documents that Ms. PC Swallow is referring to. The supplementary agenda pack that our Democratic Services team have provided is essentially one set of documents repeated 3 times. Where PC Swallow refers to page numbers, you will be looking at the page numbers in bold at the bottom of the page, if that assists you at all.
Thank you for that clarification. Members, questions? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Lehman. I have none at this time. Thank you very much. Could we therefore move on to the applicant? Have you any questions you would like to ask PC Swallow?
No.
Thank you. Now we move to yourself, Mr. Dixon, if you would like to address the subcommittee.
Yeah, of the VIP camping sales, I would withdraw my application. We don't need it. I'd like to save my taxpayers money of your meeting, and it's not a problem. I don't need to go through this for no reason. I was trying to help, so I withdraw the applicant and save your time. Thank you on that one.
Mr. Dixon, I'll just take legal advice.
So the applicant is entitled to withdraw at any moment in time. So if you are accepting of that withdrawal, then the matter can conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. On behalf of the committee and members,
Thank you.
quite well. If that's the case, then we move on to item 3. Sorry. The other one.
I take it I am paying for this meeting with all my taxes and stuff for everyone to be wasted on this, don't I?
Well, it's an application that we will obviously deal with.
Yeah.
You've made the application, so we will endeavour to do our duty to come to a conclusion on the application.
Mm-hmm.
Members of the committee, I'm Mike Reid, to my left is Councillor Laming, to my right is Councillor Cunningham. The officers present.
Brian Appletree, licensing officer.
Nathan Matty, litigation solicitor.
Nancy Graham, Democratic Services Officer.
PC Brian Swallow, police licensing officer, representing Chief Officer of Police.
The hearings regulations require that the hearing should take place in the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee, and that no cross-examination would not normally be allowed. We will be following the adopted procedures for these hearings, which is set out on the reverse of the agenda paper. Each party will be allowed equal maximum time to exercise their rights at the hearing. I will exercise my discretion to allow additional time if necessary, taking into account the requirement to allow all parties equal maximum time. Now invite the premises holder, which is Mr. Nixon. You're there?
Sorry, my name is Dixon, not Nixon.
Dixon?
Yes.
What did I say?
You said Nixon.
I apologise.
Thank you.
And representing the police authority is PC Swallow.
Thank you, and not Mr. Swales, as I've been called 3 times so far before.
Thank you. This is where I've got stuck before, isn't it? Why did I do that? We can only consider the issues related to the 4 licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children. The subcommittee also has regard to the national guidance and the council's licensing policy. I now invite the licensing officer to present the report.
Before the officer presents her report, Mr. Dixon, would you like to confirm whether or not this is an application you wish to proceed with?
Yes, as it's the same bar 1 and 2 that have previously been in the same positions for the last 10 years, yeah.
So you wish to have this matter heard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is agenda item 3, reference LR 546. This is a proposal to hold an event under a temporary event notice, or TEN for short, in accordance with section 100 of the Licensing Act 2003. The premises user is Mr. Steve Dixon. The premises concerned is bars 2 and 3 at a motocross event to be held at Mackley Basin, Winchester, between the 25th of June and 27th of June 2021. It is proposed that licensable activities under this temporary event notice will be restricted to bars 2 and 3 only. No plan was submitted with the temporary event notice to indicate the location of these premises. However, it is understood that this location is already covered by both premises licences in effect at this premises for the same event. You will see that bars 2 and 3 are shown on the licence plans for premises licence reference 745 on page 118 of your bundle, and they are again shown on the licence plans for premises licence reference 746 on page 131 of your report bundle. The sale by retail of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, being the only proposed licensable activity, is proposed to take place on both Saturday the 26th of June 2020 and Sunday the 27th of June 2020 between 9 AM and 6 PM. The temporary event notice can be seen in full in Appendix 1 to this report, which is pages 99 to 106 of your report bundle. Both Hampshire Constabulary and Environmental Health were consulted on the application, being the relevant persons for TEN's applications. PC Brian Swallow made an objection to the temporary event notice on behalf of Hampshire Constabulary, referring to the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. The objection notice is detailed in Appendix 2 to this report, which is pages 107 to 109 of the report bundle. Whereas members are used to dealing with applications, this is a notice that an event is taking place. Therefore, the subcommittee has the option to either permit the event to take place in accordance with the temporary event notice, with or without conditions, or to recommend that the licensing authority issue a counter notice to prevent the event from taking place. Full details of your decisions available to you are outlined on page 95 of the report bundle, and a legal advisor is present today to assist you. Please let me know if you have any queries.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Laney, are there any questions? Councillor Cunningham?
No, not at this time.
Thank you very much. In that case, we'll move on to the objector, which is in the form of PC Swallow. PC Swallow, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, procedurally, I'd like to introduce further documentary evidence to this hearing in the form of a letter by David Ingram, Chair of Winchester Safety Advisory Group, Service League Public Protection Services, where he voices his concerns about public safety. Under the Hearing Regulations Act, I need consent from all parties to have this evidence included in the hearing, and I'm seeking that consent.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon? Are you in agreement to accepting this letter as part of the documentation?
No.
Okay. Members?
Yes.
Okay. I will just address to the legal officer as to where we go, please. Mr. Dixon has not agreed to the submission of this additional information.
Is that correct, Mr. Dixon? Just to be clear, you're saying that you do not want the additional letter to be submitted in evidence? Can't hear you.
You're muted.
Yourself.
Going on the past evidence of the VIP 10s application, I feel that for someone that has never been to our event over the last 10 years, I feel I'm being incriminated by the objections to regarding bar 2 and 3 that have been in place since 2006 to help the movement of the crowd,
Mr. Dixon,
especially in this COVID time.
Mr. Dixon, it's okay. If you object to the inclusion of the letter, everybody has to agree for it to be considered. So if you object, it won't be included.
Okay, object.
Could I therefore ask the objector to continue with your case, please?
Thank you, Chair. Following on from submitting my application objecting to this notice, I received no communications from the applicant addressing any of the issues I have raised. As such, it is still unclear as to why this 10 is required, as it is already covered, the bars are already covered under the 2 existing premises licences, which you have copies of. There is no mention of this temporary event notice within the supplied bar management plans. Amazingly, version 2 of the plan was submitted after my objection, highlighting this point, and it's still not mentioned within the document. And for clarity, Mr. Dixon is the author of both and all of these documents. The 10 is notifying for on and off sales, allowing 499 persons in the area. There is no detail as to how these numbers are to be controlled. There is also no detail excuse me, as to how the on sales are going to be supplied in accordance with the health protection regulations, where it states that all alcohol must be supplied to those persons seated. The continuing saga in relation to security at the event is still ongoing. We have now been advised that there will be a second security company operating the event, and to compound my serious concerns, the security policy statement, the policy document, is a mere 2 pages long and offers no detail whatsoever. It states that Security Nation will coordinate and deliver the overall security plan. Unfortunately, nobody is aware of such a plan, and in fact the Managing Director of Security Nation is not returning anybody's communication. It is also noteworthy that the 2 bars in question for this application, covered by the 2 premises licence, are also supported by formal conditions in relation to security and age verification.
the granting of this temporary event notice will override those conditions. Yesterday, I spoke to the premises license, DPS, Mr. Robert Simmons. He is completely unaware that a 10 has been applied for, covering the 2 bars that he is operating. The event is an annual event, with it previously being held in February 2020. The event was far from incident-free. There were breaches of the premises licence, with lack of security, insecure bars, unchallenged intoxication, and a lack of communication overall between the event organiser and the security company. However, the most concerning situation was a large structure collapse. Fortunately, nobody was killed. At a recent safety advisory group meeting, all of the issues at last year's event were put to Mr Dixon, where he completely dismissed that he was responsible for any of the failings. The event is 8 days away. None of the points I raised in my objection have been addressed, and as such, I still request that a counter notice is issued, and as I have no confidence in Mr Dixon that he can promote the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the protection of children from harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Ronnie, is there any points of clarification you wish to? No?
No, I have no points, thank you,
That's
Chair.
forward on, move on to members' questions. Councillor Cunningham.
I'll ask questions at the appropriate time. Not yet.
Not yet.
Any questions for the objector?
Yes, just so we can be perfectly clear on this, these 2 bars are already covered by a licence.
Yes, they are.
So that covers that for it. Thank you.
No further questions. We'll move on to the applicant. Have you any questions for the objector?
No, only that I'm sorry I put in the application. Basically, all 4 applications I put in because, you know, what was going on with COVID, and I just didn't want to miss any schedules. As I say, this is normally dealt with by the bar manager of Simmons Bar, and yeah, so I made a clerical error of handing in the 10s covered by the premise license. I'm sorry.
So, Mr Dixon, are you intending to continue with the application at this stage?
Not with the 10s because it's covered by the premises license of bar 2 and 3. You know, we don't need any extra times. As I say, those bars only cater for during the day from 9 or 10 till 5. So, and then that whole arena is closed off, and then it reverts back to the premise license area.
So you will withdraw the application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Nixon. Once again, I would like to thank Mr Dixon for coming in, for being online, and the objector in the form of PC Swallow for being present, and members of the committee, thank you very much, and especially officers, and thank you for your cooperation throughout. This meeting is now formally closed at 2 minutes past. Thank you.
Thank you.